let me share something most people never truly understand until much later in life. What breaks us isn't always what happens to us. It's often what we choose to bury deep within and never confront. See, we often mistake strength for endurance, keeping it together, smiling when we want to cry, saying, "I'm okay," when inside we're falling apart. But here's a truth that few like to acknowledge. The emotions we suppress don't vanish. They linger quietly. They settle like dust in the corners of our mind, unseen at first, but heavy enough to shape how we think, how we behave, even how our body feels. And here's the twist. The very emotions we lock away for the sake of survival are often the same ones silently draining our strength over time. But why? Why do we suppress emotions to begin with? It's simple. From childhood, we're taught that some emotions are good and others are bad. Anger, sadness, fear. These are often labeled as weaknesses, flaws to be hidden. Maybe someone told you to stop crying and be strong. Maybe society rewarded you for being the one who never complains. Maybe you learned that showing too much of yourself makes you look fragile. So you pushed those feelings down, sealed them off, and told yourself you were fine. But psychology reveals something fascinating. Emotions aren't meant to be destroyed. They're signals, messengers. When we silence them, they don't disappear. They transform. And here's where it gets even more interesting. Research in emotional psychology shows that suppressed emotions often return in disguise. That anger you never expressed might reappear as irritation or chronic stress. That sadness you never allowed yourself to feel could return as numbness, apathy, even exhaustion. The body keeps score, and it reveals the truth in ways we rarely expect. Now, pause for a moment and think about this. How many times have you brushed off your feelings, only to find yourself days or weeks later, tired, anxious, or snapping at someone for no reason? That wasn't weakness. That was repressed emotion knocking on your door. But let me ask you something deeper. What if hiding those emotions is what actually steals your strength? Because strength isn't pretending not to feel. It's the courage to face what you feel, to understand it, and let it move through you, rather than control you from the shadows. There's a concept in psychology called the return of the repressed. It suggests that what we push down always finds a way back, through dreams, slips of the tongue, or sudden bursts of behavior we can't explain. Imagine trying to hold a beach ball underwater. You can press it down for a while, but eventually the pressure builds, and it bursts upward with force. That's exactly what repressed emotions do. They don't disappear. They wait. Here's where the curiosity begins. If repression weakens us, then what makes us strong? Is it expressing everything we feel without filter? Or is it finding balance, a deeper form of emotional intelligence that helps us hold our feelings without being trapped by them? Before I give you that answer, let me share something that might change how you think about your own emotions. Neurological studies show that when we consciously suppress emotions, our brain's prefrontal cortex works overtime to keep them under control, while the amygdala, the part of the brain that senses fear and threat, stays highly active. Translation? Even when you think you're hiding the emotion, your body still experiences stress, as if the emotion were fully alive. It's like running a background program in your mind, draining your energy without you realizing it. That's why repression feels like strength in the moment, but becomes weakness in the long run. Think about it. Have you ever felt drained for no reason? Like your energy was leaking from somewhere unseen? Chances are, it wasn't just lack of rest. It was emotional suppression quietly taxing your system. But it goes deeper. Repressed emotions don't just weaken you inside, they shape how you interact with the world. A person who suppresses anger may struggle with boundaries, constantly saying yes when they want to say no until resentment builds. Someone who buries sadness might find it hard to connect, because real connection demands vulnerability. Repressed fear can appear as over-control, the need to manage everything so that hidden fear never surfaces. Do you see the pattern? Repressed emotions aren't private battles. They seep into your choices, your relationships, even your life's direction. And here's the haunting part. Most of us don't even realize it's happening. So if repression is so damaging, why do we keep doing it? Why don't we simply let ourselves feel? The answer lies in something called emotional conditioning. Over time, your brain learns shortcuts. If every time you showed sadness as a child you were told to toughen up, your brain made a rule. Sadness is unsafe. Hide it. If every time you expressed anger you were punished, your brain decided, anger is dangerous. Repress it. These rules become automatic. You don't even realize you're doing it. It just becomes part of who you are. And that's the paradox of repression. It feels like control, but it's the exact opposite. Instead of you controlling your emotions control you, from behind the curtain. But wait, there's something else. A study published in the Journal of Personality and Social Psychology discovered that people who regularly suppress their emotions actually develop lower resilience to stress. In simple terms, the very act of hiding what you feel makes you less capable of handling life's challenges. Ironic, isn't it? We're taught to repress emotions to seem strong, but in doing so, we weaken the very roots of our strength. So let me ask again, what truly makes us strong? The answer lies not in repression, not in emotional explosions, but in integration. To integrate means allowing your emotions to exist, to recognize them, to learn from them, without letting them dominate you. Integration turns weakness into wisdom. Think of it like this. Your emotions aren't enemies to fight, but teachers to listen to. Anger can show you where your boundaries lie. Sadness can remind you of what truly matters to your heart. Fear can point toward the areas where growth is calling. And when you choose to listen instead of suppress, you gain real strength. Not the fragile strength of pretending, but the resilient strength of understanding. Now, before we step into the deeper layers of this psychology, let me leave you with a question, a curiosity loop to guide the next part of this journey. If emotions are teachers and repression weakens us, then what happens when we finally face the ones we've buried for years? What happens when a person decides to unlock that inner room filled with long-forgotten feelings? Does it break them, or does it set them free? Because here's the truth. Among countless stories of people burdened by repressed emotions, the most powerful transformations never came from avoiding pain. They came from facing it, gently, courageously. And in the next part, I'll show you not just why repression makes you weaker, but how acknowledging your emotions can rewire your brain, reshape your relationships, and restore the strength you never knew you'd lost. But for now, let me leave you with this thought. Maybe true strength isn't about how much you can hold back, but how deeply you can feel without letting those feelings define you. So let's return to that question I left you with. What happens when we finally face the emotions we've been repressing for years? Does it break us, or does it set us free? Here's the paradox. At first, it feels like breaking, because when you open that locked room inside your mind, the emotions you've been hiding rush back with intensity. You might cry unexpectedly. You might feel anger rising in ways you're not used to. You might suddenly feel drained, as if you've been carrying a heavy weight without realizing it. And in those moments, it's tempting to shut the door again, to say, "See, this is why I never let myself feel." But if you can stay present, if you can allow those emotions to move through you instead of locking them away again, something remarkable happens. Slowly, the storm settles, and what remains is clarity. You begin to see that your emotions were never enemies to fight, but messengers guiding you toward your deepest needs. This isn't just poetic talk, it's psychological fact. Research in effective neuroscience shows that emotions have a biological half-life. When they're fully felt, most emotions fade naturally within minutes. It's repression that stretches them into years of quiet suffering. Think about that. By avoiding emotions we actually extend their control over us. But by feeling them, we shorten their power. What looks like weakness in the moment, crying, admitting fear, expressing frustration, is actually the pathway to resilience. Let me paint a picture. Imagine your emotions as water flowing through a river. If you block the river with a dam, the water doesn't disappear. It builds pressure, cracks the walls, and floods the land. That's repression. But if you let the river flow, it moves naturally, cleansing and nourishing everything it touches. That's integration. That's emotional freedom. And here's where it gets even more fascinating. Modern psychology shows that acknowledging your emotions physically changes your brain. Brain scan studies reveal that simply naming what you feel, anger, sadness, fear, reduces activity in the amygdala and strengthens regulation in the prefrontal cortex. In simpler terms, when you acknowledge what you feel, your brain literally shifts from survival mode to control mode. You don't just feel calmer, you become stronger. But the benefits don't end there. Facing your emotions also transforms how you connect with others. Vulnerability, far from being a weakness, creates genuine connection. When you let someone see your authentic self, not the polished version, but the raw, imperfect truth, you give them permission to do the same. That's how trust deepens. That's how real love and friendship grow. Maybe that's why so many people today feel disconnected. We live in a world that glorifies highlight reels, but hides the behind the scenes. We celebrate strength, but quietly punish vulnerability. The result? People smile on the outside while quietly drowning inside. But when even one person dares to break that pattern, to say, "Yes, I struggle too, and that's okay," something powerful happens. Others feel safe to be real too. And in that shared honesty, weakness transforms into collective strength. But here's a new curiosity for you. If repression makes us weak, and expression makes us stronger, then why don't we all simply choose expression? Why does repression still rule so many lives? The answer is fear. Fear of judgment. Fear of rejection. Fear of facing truths that might change how we see ourselves. Repression isn't chosen because it's right. It's chosen because it feels safe. It's a shield we hold up against the world. But the irony is this: the shield eventually becomes the prison. So how do we break free from that prison? How do we unlock the strength that comes from facing what we've hidden for so long? It begins with awareness. Not with dramatic confrontation, not by spilling everything to everyone, but with quiet honesty toward yourself. Ask yourself, what am I truly feeling beneath the surface? Not what I tell others, not what I convince myself of, but what's really there. And then, this part is vital. Don't judge it. Anger doesn't make you wrong. Sadness doesn't make you weak. Fear doesn't make you broken. They simply make you human. From there, small, consistent practices can shift everything. Writing your thoughts instead of burying them. Talking to a trusted friend or therapist. Pausing when tension rises and asking yourself, what emotion is this, and what does it need? They may sound simple, but neuroscience proves these actions rewire your brain, teaching you to process emotions instead of repressing them. And the more you practice, the stronger you become. Not the rigid strength of repression, but the flexible strength of resilience. You begin to see emotions for what they are: waves on the shore. They rise, they crash, they fade. None of them last forever. And once you understand that, you stop fearing them. But here's something deeper. Maybe true weakness isn't in feeling too much, but in feeling too little. Because when you shut out sadness, you also shut out joy. When you suppress fear, you dull excitement. When you silence anger, you silence passion too. Repression doesn't just protect you from pain, it protects you from life itself. So the real question becomes, Do you want safety? Or do you want aliveness? Because safety without aliveness is merely survival, and aliveness, though messy and unpredictable, is where strength, love, and meaning truly live. Every great story, every deep connection, every moment of growth, none of it is born from repression. It all begins with those who dare to face themselves, to feel, to fall, and to rise again. So if you've been carrying emotions you've long avoided, maybe now is the moment. Not to fight them, not to drown in them, but to sit with them, to say, I see you, I hear you, I accept you. And in doing so, you'll discover a strength that doesn't crack under pressure, because it no longer has to hide. And maybe, just maybe, you'll realize the truth. Weakness isn't in feeling too deeply, but in refusing to feel at all. So the next time you find yourself holding back tears, silencing anger, or numbing sadness, remember this: what you repress today becomes the weight you carry tomorrow. But what you allow yourself to feel today becomes the freedom you live with tomorrow. In the end, the psychology of repressed emotions isn't about weakness or strength. It's about honesty. And the more honest you are with yourself, the more unshakable your strength becomes. Because life will always test you. Pain will always come. But freedom belongs to those who dare to feel,